So in this video, I wanted to kind of walk you guys through this spreadsheet that I built to be able to, plan for your house buying process, how much you will be paying monthly, and how much you will have to, save up to be able to pay upfront as well. So in this spreadsheet, I'm going to have three components, or actually two primary components. One is the input section, and the other is the results section. And I do have a small saving guideline option, which I'll talk about later. But let's start with input sections. This is where you will be putting a lot of your inputs. We're going to start with the house price that you want. And this is going to come from either Zillow or whatever app you're looking into to be able to see the house prices in the market. And you can always put the listing price in here, but just know that depending on the market situation, sometimes you will be end up paying more or less than the listing price. But for our sake, we're just going to say, let's say, $250,000 house. That's what we want. And then we're going to be going to the next line, which is the year you will buy the house. You don't have to be exact. Just pick a number where you think you might be able to buy a house. In our case, we put April of 2022. And this number is not very important, but the only reason it's important is to be able to calculate when you will be able to own the house after paying off your debt. And then let's go to the next section, which is the down payment. This is a very important section to be able to own a house. Usually, the common recommendation is that you pay 20% upfront to be able to avoid any PMI, which is basically, I think, private mortgage insurance. So if you pay 20% upfront, you don't have to pay that. It's usually, I'm going to be talking about it here. It's usually around 100 or 120, $130, $150, depending on the loan that you borrowed. But if you pay 20%, you don't need to worry about that. And then one thing I wanted to kind of mention here is, see how it says kind of like 50,000 for 20%. This is a dynamic actually number. Basically, it will always tell you, depending on your house price, what is the amount that you have to pay at the very minimum. So for a $300,000 house, you should pay $60,000 as down payment. And then when we look at it, we're like, okay, 60,000 is the minimum. Maybe I can afford another 10,000, and then you're going to say 70,000, and that's it. And then the next line is the estimated closing cost. This is one of the items that a lot of the new home buyers actually don't think about as much. And the closing cost is basically some of the fees that you will have to pay to the title company. Basically, the people who will be giving you paperwork and things like that, that you actually own the house, and then the people that kind of acts as the middleman, if you will, between you and then the borrowers. And so you have to pay them some money. And then another majority of the share actually goes because of your property tax. So a lot of the lenders do want to take the property tax for that year, the first year, or at least 6 months upfront. And then they also will take the home insurance for that year upfront. So that also adds to that closing cost. So estimated, for $300,000, maybe you're looking at a $7,000 to $10,000, depending on the situation. This number, you can actually get a better sense as you get closer to buying process. But for the rough estimate, just leave it at 10,000. And another thing that I wanted to kind of add is the upgrading budget. So whenever you do buy a house, the closer that you can be in terms of your estimation, the better it is for your future planning and how smoother it will be. Like there will be less surprises for you. So that's why I added this, because one of the things you should think about is whenever you do buy a house, you will need to buy some furniture, especially if you're not living in a house at the moment. And then you need some moving costs to go from one place to the other. they can range up to anywhere from $500 to $1,000, depending on how far you're moving. You also have to, for cosmetic update of your house, some money, and then power, like some tools, basically things like maybe you didn't have power tools, maybe you didn't have, a lawnmower before, but now you do now that you have a house to maintain. So things like that. So I put 5,000, but people will put whatever they think that these things should cost them. And profit rate is something that in Islamic borrowing, it's called profit rate, and it has some similarities with the conventional interest rate as well. And last year for guidance to residential, it was 2.875. And this number actually also depends on your credit score. The better credit score you have, the lower your rate is going to be. Another thing I forgot to mention is the other reason you want to avoid the PMI is because in Islamic jurisdiction, PMI is not considered to be a halal thing 100%. So if you can avoid it, do avoid it. So PMI, like I kind of already talked about it, try to be at zero. And then maturity year. So whenever you do borrow money, the borrower will give you two options to pay it out. One is in 15 years, another is in 30 years. So benefit of 15 years is that you will be paying less in interest or profit to that company that you're borrowing. Basically, the way these people make money is the extra amount of money that you give them. So if you pay it off in 15 years, take a notice at this number here. So this is the money you will be paying to that company as a profit in a form of either profit rate or interest rate. So if you at 15 years, this is a 46, and then to put it at 30 years, it goes up to $85,000. So that's a huge difference, right? However, another thing you should look at, if you put 15 years here, look at the monthly payment that you have to commit to versus if you put 30 years, the monthly payment goes down significantly. So this is the number that you'll be paying a lot of attention to. But based on some of the analysis that I have done, I found 30 years to be the ideal situation because it keeps the monthly payment low. And just know that whenever you lock in, this is the amount that you are bound to pay to that company. If you don't pay, you're going to have late payments, or in worst cases, they can take your house and put it on foreclosure and things like that. So you commit to a lower number in my recommendation, and then I'll show you another option where you can still strive to pay it off earlier than 30 years. And the next line is the yearly HOA fee. And this number you'll be able to find it from Zillow, and a lot of the places where you will have nicer houses, they will have the HOA fee. And it ranges anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. And then property tax, in Rhode Island, it's I think around 1.86 or something like that. I put 2% as a default. In Texas, it's I think around 3%, 2.7%, something pretty high. So just Google it, this number to be precise, and depending on which state you're buying the house in. And then the yearly insurance is I put 2,000. Again, depends on the company that you go with. But this $2,000 is pretty realistic for $300,000. And these items are like bills. And this is something that I put just to give even a better estimation of the monthly payment. So this monthly payment does not include any of the bills, but this do. So does, and then I'm gonna later explain how these things work, and we go with their results. So here is the optional section where if you wanted to pay off your debt a little bit early, this is where you be able to put those numbers. So let's say per month, let's say what is the default? If I put all the zeros, look at this. It takes 30 years, obviously, because we picked 30 years. And then you're like, okay, each month I can afford another 30 or $300. Okay, let's see how that improves. Just by adding $300 per month saves you 10 years. And also pay attention to this number at 73,000. If you put zero, they're actually making almost $40,000 on by letting you borrow their money. So uh, the earlier you pay off, the less the investing will pay in profits to that company. And then this one, yearly extra payment, is the extra section is because you're going to be paying it in lump sum in just one time each year. And this is because a lot of people get tax returns, and then they also get bonuses from their company. And then I would highly encourage people to use some of this money and then put into the house payment. So let's say each year you decide I'm going to pay $2,000 additional, uh, and then that's going to also impact another 3 years from your 20 years. And then this is the number where you will be able to, pick which month. So these are months. One represents January, February, three represents March, so on and so forth. And I put April as default because that's the time people do their tax returns. But feel free to put whatever number that you think will be able to, move that investment. Let's come to the results section. So results sections, we have the total upfront amount that we need to have in our bank account before we even think about, buying the house. So the components are down payments, which comes from here, closing costs, which we talked about here, and then the upgrading budget, which comes from here. And those three components combine into this 85,000 number. So depending on which house, 150,000, let's say, and then we're like, you only want to pay 20% down payment, and let's say the closing cost went down to 7,000, and then in that case, your payment, the amount that you need to save up is actually significantly reduced to $62,000. And then let's come to how much monthly we're going to have to commit to the very minimum. So let's say I'm going to put this to zero, put this to zero. And then for a $250,000 house, you're going to have to pay $1,500 per month to be able to continue this. But this comes from the different components. I'm going to walk you through really quickly. So this first component actually goes toward the lender. So portion of this actually goes toward fulfilling your principal payment, and another portion goes into paying to the company as a profit. So this goes to the company that lended you the money. And they also, a lot of these lenders will take money from you for the property tax, insurance, PMI, and obviously the monthly extra payment, whatever you choose to put here, let's say 300, and that's going to be reflected here, and that's also going to be taken by your company. And these are called escrow. So which is kind of a nice thing that you don't have to worry about property tax. It's already, factored into this number and they deal with it. The only thing you do have to worry about is the HOA fee, homeowners insurance fee. They don't take it each month, but you will have to put it aside because the HOA in your area is gonna, charge you after each year, and you have to pay lump sum amount at the end of the year. And then this is the number. Then finally, we'll show you what is the amount that you'll be paying each month. And this is the number that we talked about that also includes the bills. So basically, the blue number is the actual amount that you'll be spending just to keep the house in the that includes this number and the bills. And this number is where you'll be able to see, I already talked about this, how long your debt payment is going to take you, depending on what you choose, how you choose to pay your amount, like for example, 2,000 and then 16 or so. And this shows by which year you'll be able to own your house and pay off your debts. And this number shows you how much you're actually paying to that company as a profit. And this is a small uh, chart that I have with the table that I have to be able to estimate how long it's gonna or how you should plan for saving money for the upfront cost. So the only thing you have to change here is this salmon colored cells. This target amount actually comes from here. Whatever the amount here, it's automatically given here. And this is the amount that you're going to be putting in, and that's its input whatever you have currently in your savings account as of today. Let's say $40,000 is what you have saved up, and then you're trying to figure out, okay, if I want to be able to buy this house, so this number actually also comes from here, so you won't have to change that. And so you're trying to figure out how much do I have to save from today if I want to be able to buy the house by this date. So it'll automatically tell you each month put $3,600 on the side to be able to save up for buying the house. That's all there is to it as far as the main components. But there is a spreadsheet that kind of can show you some of the components at an individual month by month basis if you do care to look at them. But I would say you won't have to. You could just stick with these numbers and that'll give you better sense. So that's why I'm going to quickly explain these now and go in depth. So this is where it's going to show you the payment month. This is the amount that it's going to show you that what you're going to be starting at. Remember, even though the house price is 250, you're not going to be borrowing that. Basically, you're going to be paying off some of it. So that's your beginning balance. And then the scheduled payment, which is already calculated here um, for the monthly payment. So here I'm only showing the amount that goes into the borrower. I'm not showing any of these. That's only here. And then the monthly extra payment, whatever you put here, it will automatically be populated here. And then whatever you put here and here, it'll, how you put 4, it's always going to be at the 4, which is the April of each year that it's going to be into. And then in combination of yearly, monthly, and then the scheduled payment, it's going to be the total payment. And then of that total payment, a portion of it is going to go toward the principal, meaning that they're going to be buying this amount of house of yours, and then the rest of it actually is going to go toward the profit that the company will make on top of. And then after doing all of this, this is the ending balance for that month, and then that's what's going to go into here, and then so on and so forth. Hopefully, this will help. If you guys have any other questions, let us know. We'll be able to help you with this. Thanks for watching.